Good day coders, in this video I'm presenting a crash course on how to build a wonderful chat application using Angular and Firebase, and we're also going to utilize Tailwind CSS for our styling. So first and foremost, you'll go through this auth where you actually sign in with Google. So the moment you actually sign in with Google, this should pop you up like a Google Authentication. So I'll sign in using this user. This will log me in, and then if I sign in on another client on the right hand side, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use this user. Okay, so basically this is what's gonna happen, right? So you click on a user you want to chat with and say, hello buddy. You can send a message, and you'll see over here it will pop up the last message that you've actually sent. So if you read this message and say, hey, how are you doing? So when you send this over here, this user should get this message in real time. So this is basically what we're going to be implementing in this video. So if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get to the coding part.
So the first one is going to be our actually Angular Fire. The next one that we're going to need is our actual icons, which are coming from these font awesomes, and setting up Tailwind CSS. So I do have like a video that I will link in the description where I show you how to set up Angular on Tailwind CSS. So the next thing that you probably also need is to set up your Tailwind config. There's a bunch of like colors that I actually set it up, that I've already set up. So the content which the Tailwind CSS is going to run off of is the HTML and your .ts, and then over here this is where you'll set up like your extension to extend your colors, and you're going to have these custom colors. Okay, so that's basically what you need. So the next thing that I'll actually set up is going ahead and adding Tailwind CSS to our actual project. So this is going to apply to our SCSS. So how we then add like Tailwind is we'll just say Tailwind, and then this is, we'll just add the space. It's the first one, and we need this add Tailwind. We need to set up like our actual components. The next one is Tailwind utils. Okay, so now I'm actually gonna add some bit of like stylings for my actual image, buttons, and inputs. So where I'm gonna add like my actual text. So for my actual components that I have in my global CSS, I'm just gonna have this image, and I'm just gonna say for my image class, I then wanna apply, right? So I want to say the width of this image should be like 71 pixels. So this is square 71 pixels, and then the height of this should also be 71 pixels, and then this will have like some rounded corners. So let's see if I use this. Okay, let me just use 10 pixels. Okay, I'll just use that, right? So this is for my border radius. Okay, so the next one that I'm gonna add is for my buttons. So .btn class, I'm gonna apply these stylings, which is gonna be padding for width is fit. That width, I'm gonna have like my outline set up to none, my border set up to none. So we're gonna have like a minimum width for my buttons, and this should be just 100 pixels. I want to set my border radius to that. My font is going to be just a bold font. Then I'm going to use my custom color that I've actually created in my config, and this is going to use this color. So the text in there is just going to use a white text. Okay. Then when I hover on the button, I want to have a cursor pointer. So this is going to use this pointer cursor pointer. I also have like my input where I'm going to input text. So this I want to apply Tailwind CSS, I want to say the padding is 4. Then that's gonna apply this border gray, right, of 200. And then for my actual border, I'm setting it up to 2 pixels. And then the width should be full width. Outline is gonna be none. And then background, this is a white background. So my background opacity, okay, so I've got a white background. Then my background opacity set up to 1/2. Alright, then this is like rounded, so this is for my border radius. This is gonna be set up to that large border radius, so you can actually hover on this to actually see what values I'm actually using, right? Okay, so my text is set up to a black text. That's a large, and then my placeholder text is gonna use a gray 200, and so I already have a text color, which is that black text color. So now I can actually go ahead and actually serve this application and see what's actually going on. Okay, for now I've just set up just stylings, so that's not a bit of like an issue. So the next thing that I'd want to do is add my folders that I'm going to need, right, for this project. So the first thing that I'll need is my actual components folder. So this is the components folder, right? So I normally have components, services. Okay, sorry. So services. Under service, okay, then I've got interfaces. Okay, I'm gonna have like guards, which is gonna be, for this instance, I'm gonna have like an auth guard. Since I'm using Firebase, this is where I'm just gonna put in like my Firebase config. So this is gonna be Firebase config. Oh, and please don't forget to run this command. So I'm not gonna show my environments over here because that's where I've got my Firebase config. But there's a specific command that you need to actually set up to get environments. So you say ng generate environments, and this Angular CLI should enable you to actually create these environments. Okay, so that's what I need for that. And okay, so I've got the services, interfaces, guards, Firebase. I also need to add one for pages. Okay, so within my interfaces over here, I'll need to have my models. I normally have models, so I'll just add a folder for models, and also another folder in here for UI config. So this is UI configs. Okay, alrighty, so this is all good. So now I'm gonna just create like a page which is gonna be for my components test page. So what this test page is gonna do is every time I create a component, I'm just gonna put it on this test page just to see how the component is gonna look like. So how I can go about that is I can just cd into that src apps, and then I can just say pages, and then in here I can ng generate a component for test. This is just going to be my test components. Okay, so now that I have that, I can just cd out, and then I can just cd into apps components. Okay, cd into app and cd into components, and then in my components I'm gonna generate a couple of components. Okay, so the first component that I'm gonna generate is actually my chat bubble, because I'm actually creating a chat app, right? So just gonna need my chat bubble. So this is gonna be from my Angular CLI ng generate a component, and this component is called chat bubble. Okay, clear this, Then I'll just ng generate a component which is going to be for my search input. That's going to be generated, and then ng generate another component which is going to be for my user chat card. So user chat card. Okay, so these are the components that I'm actually going to need, right? So now if I cd out, sorry for that. So now if I actually cd out, what's going to happen is I'm at the root of this project. So I can actually now ng serve, right? So in here, what I'm going to do is gonna create like just some what do you call this, paths, right? So this is just gonna be called a test path, and then this test path is gonna go to my actual test component. So it's test. Okay, what's going on? It's test component. Okay, sure. Now if I come right here, you'll see that I've got this test, but what I basically want to do is I want to remove everything in here and just leave this router outlet. Okay, so now if I save this, you should see a blank, right? So if I just say /test, okay, this should show this test page. Right, so now let me go ahead and actually utilize some of those components in there. So what's the first component that I basically want to build? So the first component that I'm going to build is this chat bubble component, right? So what I'm going to need is in the TS folder, I want to create a couple of things, right? Okay, here. So I like to create like a config, right, inputs that I actually pass into the actual component. So what I do is, okay, I'll say that's named config, and then here I'm just gonna have a chat bubble config. Okay, this is gonna be then an interface. So I can then go ahead to my interfaces over here, because this is a UI config, and here I'm just gonna say chat bubble, right, dot interface. Okay, this is chat bubble config dot interface dot ts. Okay, so what am I gonna need in there, right? So I'm gonna need two things. Sorry for that. I'm gonna need two things. So the first one would be my interface, right? And then this is called chat bubble config over here. So I'm gonna have like a text, right? And I'm also gonna have like a position of this text, because when someone enters something, right, these speech bubbles should differentiate whether it should show on the right or the left hand side, right? So the user that I'm chatting to, right, their response should be displayed on the left hand side, and then my response are going to be shown on the right hand side. So that's basically what I'm trying to do, right? So over here, and then I'm going to use a text position. This is actually a custom type that I'm actually going to create. So this is just going to be a type text position, right? So I'm going to have these, right? So I'm going to have this left or right. Sorry for that. So I'm going to have this left and right, and that should be fine. Okay, so what's the next thing that I'm going to use, right? So in here, then I'll need to go to my chat bubble and actually import this. So now that I've actually imported this, I can go ahead into my actual HTML and start creating some stuff. Okay, so I'll create like a class over here which is called chat, right? Bubble container. Okay, so I'm going to use like a chat bubble container, and then I'm going to add some bit of Tailwind CSS classes. So I'm going to use this padding 5, some rounded 3XL. Then I'm going to have like a border right. So this is rounded BR of none. Then the max width of this specific bubble should be set up to 70%. Okay. Then the background is going to be white. That's the background color. And then we're going to set out this to fit, and then the flex, because this is just going to display flex. And then in here I'm just going to display then my config. So this is the text, right? Because I want to display text in there. Alright, so now then there's a couple of ng classes that I actually want to add in here. Right, so these are just going to be the conditional classes that I'm just going to add. So what I want to do is, if this text, right, if the config dot the position of this is set out to left. Okay, let me see, is this fine? Okay, I know why I'm getting this error. So here I'll just need to add my common module. Okay, alright. So if this config position is set up to left, what I basically want to do is I want to add this class. So this is going to be rounded BL non. Okay, right. So that's fine. And the next one would be, I would need another class which is going to be my right bubble. For my right bubble, what I want to do is, this class is going to be appended if I get like from this config dot position is equal to right. Okay, then I also want to add this rounded border right is set to none only if the condition is this position is equal to triple equal to, okay, right, okay, right. Then we've got this justify start, and then this is set out to config dot position is set out to the left position. I need this to be single. Then justify and this is if I have config. So this is config position. So this is right. So this is set out to the left and that's set out to the right. Then the margin auto. So because I want to push it to the right hand side, so only if, so I'm going to say margin auto. So I want to set out this margin auto to be this. So config position, right? So I want to push it to the left. So I need to set them. So this is the margin right. Sorry, my bad. Margin right if this config dot. Oh, no, sorry, my bad. This is set out to the left hand side, right? And I want to push it to the right. So I need to use margin left of auto, right? If the config dot position is equal to right. And yeah, this is basically what I need for this component to be rendered. So let's go ahead to my actual test component over here, well, test page, and I can use app chat. I'll obviously need to pass this. I'll say left config, and I'll have a right config, right config. So I'll just basically need to add that first, right? So for the left config, right, which is chat bubble config interface. So obviously now it's gonna give me like a bunch of errors, so I'll need to add in some stuff. So add missing, so this is just gonna be for the left, and the text is hello world, how are you? Okay, and then for the right hand side, that should be that. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now I've got both of those, okay, but there's something that I didn't add, right? Because here there's actually these custom classes. So the first one was this chat class, and then we also have this right bubble class that I actually need to add. So in my actual CSS, right, I'll need to actually add in this Tailwind components, and then say for the layer components. So this is how you actually utilize Tailwind CSS in your actual SCSS class, right? So now you're gonna use this chat bubble container, and here I'm just gonna apply the background. Custom color is gonna be set up to this bubble background color, and then my text over here is gonna be this black text. So let's just make sure that this is what I need. Cool. Now you can basically see there's something actually happening with these speech bubbles, right? So there's actually another one that I'll need to add in. So this is going to be for my right bubble. So this is for my right bubble. So for the right bubble, I just need to apply the background color. So this is using custom color, and this is going to say right background, and then text is a white text. So now let's see what's happening. Okay, so we've got that, but I want to see if that's okay. Alrighty, so let's go in here and actually see something. So I've got this. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. So here I need to set out this to the right position, and then I'm gonna say, hi man, I am all good. So now you can see that there's actually like a difference in these text bubbles. So we've already created one of that component, which is the chat bubble. So moving forth to our actual next component that we're gonna create. So I think here we can do something like this if we want to, right? So we can just have a h1 and say chat bubble components. Okay, so this is gonna just show us what's what. Okay, then here I'm gonna have an h1, which is gonna say our search input component. Okay, so in here I'm just gonna need to have like the search input component. Obviously need to make sure that I import this here. Okay, So now going into that component, there's some stuff that I just need to do, right? So I'll just go to the HTML. So in this HTML, I'll just use the search input container class. Okay, so this is going to be display flex. Then I'm going to set up the gap, the horizontal gap to 2. Background custom color is going to be set to a bubble background. Okay, then there's a couple of classes that I also need to add. So my vertical padding is going to be set up to 4 pixels. Well, not 4 pixels. This is basically, let's have that 16 pixels. Then I'm just going to say my horizon. So it's px 5, which is my padding left and right. And then this is going to be rounded LG with, just going to use this class. Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next thing now that I'll actually need is the search icon, right? So for this search icon, I'm just using this SVG for the search icon. So I'll also link down like the link to the Git repository so that you can actually, have some code to reference off of. Okay, awesome. So what is the next thing that I'll need? So this is gonna say input. So my type for this input is gonna be text, because this is a text input. Okay, but there's actually something actually important in here, right? And let me see. So I want to use flex for this. 1. Okay, then background, so this is BG, is going to be set out to be a transparent background. This is going to be then an outline. My outline is going to be none. Border is set out to none. And my text is just space. Okay, and the placeholder over here, search or start a new chat. I think I'm just gonna use that text over there. And what else do I need? So currently this is what I have for my search bar, so I can basically search anything that I need in there. And yeah, but I need to also configure some stuff in here, right? So because I want to do it in such a way that when someone, because these are 2 different components, right? So if I'm gonna reuse this component, I want the text that I'm actually inputting in my search bar to be emitted out for my parent component to actually use that. So how do you go about doing that, right? So if you want to emit events, you're gonna need something like this. So I'm just gonna call this search, right? And then I need to use an event emitter. So with this event emitter, I'm gonna set this to a string, and this is equal to new event emitter. Okay, well, I don't need to now, can just close those brackets, right? And then in here I can say handle search, right? And then in here the parameter I'm gonna pass in is actually my event, and set this to type any, right? So on this type any, what I'm gonna do is from this event, which is my text box event, right? So I want to target it and then just extract the value off of that input box. So how do I go about doing that? So I need to just say event dot target dot value, right? So I can just console.log for now, so you can actually see that it's actually extracting that. But because this is only a function, I just need to attach that to something. So I want to set this out to be triggered on any key up event. So I'll just say key up. So the moment someone types, this should actually call that function, and then I just want to pass in that event. Okay, so now what's gonna happen is I'm just gonna try to inspect over here, go to my console. You'll see the moment I type, say I say hello, you'll see I keep on like just console logging that, right? So now the next thing that I'll actually now do is, because I wanna say search dot, I wanna emit that event. So for me to emit this event, I'll just then pass in this into that event emitter, the string that I'm gonna get back. I can just then remove this. Okay, yeah, so this is basically what I need to do. But for me to actually access that over here, I'll just go to this text component, come in here, and then I'll just say search, and then handle search. So then I actually basically do the same thing over here, but now this would be me getting, so this would be me actually getting this values on my actual parent component. So now if in my parent component I say, okay, this is from my parent component, right? If I just console log this event string that I'm getting back over here, so what it's gonna do is when I type into this component, this is gonna bring back this, emit this value in here, and then this is gonna call this function. So now if I go ahead and actually console log, you'll see it's actually gonna do the same thing. Okay, awesome. Now I just went deep into that. So that's just basically it we need to do for our search input. So now the next thing that I'm gonna create is my actual user chat card. Okay, so let's just go here, go to my actual components. Let's go to, okay, let me just close everything. Let's just say test component HTML, and let me just copy this and just say user chat card component. So this is just gonna use my user chat card, and this is user chat card. Okay, interesting. Alright, so I'll need to go in there, actually save this up, and what is the first thing I'd need to do? So let me go to this component, and for this I'm gonna need like a config, because for this user chat component, this is gonna show the image of the user, the lost text, and their username, right? Okay, so how do I then go about doing this? So I'll just say this is a config, then have this, and then say user chat config. So this is gonna be my interface. So for now, I don't have that interface, so I'll just need to go ahead and create this interface. So how do I do that? So I'll go in here, that's new file, this is user chat config interface, just interface.ts. Okay, export my interface, just have that. Okay, so what am I gonna need, right? I'm gonna need like my full name, which is of type string, full name type string, the text, this is gonna be a string, and then the time. So this is just gonna then be a fun exercise for you. Okay, profile, okay. I'm gonna need the profile because I need to show their profile picture, UUID, which can be nullable. And then I'm gonna have like an on-click function in here. So this is gonna then use an arrow function which returns type any, and is active, which is just gonna then be a boolean. Okay, so this is the interface I actually need. So then in here, basically need to do this, then can add my common module. Okay, so in my HTML, what I can do is this, right? So I can have like an if statement in here. So I think this is like Angular, from Angular 17, we don't need to have like an ng if, so we can just use this if statement. Okay, now I'm going to use my class. So this is user chat container class. Okay, alrighty. So what am I actually then going to do? So I'm going to have this user chat container. I'm going to set out, like, when I hover on that specific when I hover on this specific component, I want to set this cursor display flex. Right, my width is full, gap is X, so the gap between is just going to be 14 pixels, so which is going to be the column gap. And then my items should be centered, so this is the vertical center. And then I want to set the padding, right, to be 12 pixels, and then rounded, so these are my border radius to be this large. And then h, which is the height, should be a full height, and I can go ahead and save that. Alright, so what's the next thing? So I'll just also add in like an ng class. So ng class in here, so I'm gonna have like an is active. So this is only going to be set out when I actually click on the user. I want to set an active state of that card. So how I go about doing this is, if the config.isActive is true, then that card should then utilize that is active. So in here, sorry, my bad. So then in here, what I need to then do is add this layer, then this dot is active. This is active state, and I'm going to say apply background, right? So this background should be set out to this bubble. So this is custom color, and this is going to be this bubble background. Alrighty, so I think this is actually all good. Now if I go ahead and actually check this out, is this all fine? Let's just save and actually see what's happening. So this is chat. Let's go. Oh, okay. What I basically now need to do is come in here and actually say my user chat is user chat config, right? So in here, then I need to do something like that and add all missing. So this is gonna be bug array. That's the last text. Just gonna set this to that 8 p.m. Right, so this assets, so for the profile for now, what I'm going to use is, I've got something here in assets / user profile .png. Okay, then awesome. Then in here, I think in this test, so in this page test, I need to pass in this config. Okay, maybe do I need to then let's see, ng serve. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so we've got this h search component. Why isn't it actually rendering that component? Let's see. Okay, so if I go in here and set this guy, oh, okay. Interesting. That was so that was so stupid of me. So I've actually set out like stuff, but there's nothing I'm actually putting in here. So I put in all these classes, but there's actually nothing in that component. That's how smart of me. Right? So okay, so what I'll need is I want to have like an image here. So the source of this image should come from config.profile. Okay, this profile, I think that's just all I need. I'm just not gonna, should I? Okay, user profile, don't need that. Events, okay, wow, not that. Can just say here user profile. Okay, and then I can just set this class to the class that I've in the beginning. This is the class that I actually set up in my global CSS classes. So that's this image, and then the h, the height is going to be set up to 50 pixels. I actually should have, let me see, I think 50 pixels is fine. Okay, h, let me just say 50 pixels. Right, and then h, while the width and height should be set up to 50 pixels. So the width and height is set up to 50 pixels. So now if I go ahead in here, you should see something in there, right? Okay, awesome. So what's the next thing that I want to show? So I want to have like a content section, right? So in this content section, I'm going to say this is flex 1, right, to take all of the available space, and then the flex direction would be set up to column, and then I'm gonna set the row gap to 8 pixels and the height to be a full height. So height should be set up to full. Okay, so now I can have like just a bit of some conditions. So this is going to be config full name. If I do have like a full name, then I'm just going to use a span. So in this span, I'm just going to use this is going to be bold, text is SM, text custom color, which is the stock 1 color. Okay, this is just then gonna say config.full name. So this will just display the full name. Awesome. So I need the same thing for the actual last text. Alright, so this is just gonna then say text in there, and the only thing that I'm not gonna have is it's not gonna be a bold text, but the rest should then be the same. Okay, alrighty, and then after that in here I'm gonna have like an if config.time, then display this guy for the time. So this is just gonna use the time section. This is gonna use time section. The text is small, and then the color for this time is I'm gonna use this custom color, which is that. Okay, guess that's just it that I basically need. Let me see what did I do wrong? So this is text, this is time. Okay, all right. So what did I do wrong? Oh, okay, I think I also need to say flex that and actually see. So yeah, this is basically how I'm gonna have this set up. So I'm just gonna also have the active state in my test component, so I can just say active and set this to true, so you can actually see the active one, how it's actually gonna look. So for this guy, I'm gonna say active. Then if you come over here, you'll see that, okay, this chat, this card is going to be like this, and then for the clicked one, I'm just then basically going to have that active state. So yeah, I'm up to something. So I've actually created all the components that we basically need for now. And the next thing would be basically going in and creating my login page and my actual chats page. So let's go ahead and actually create that. So in here, just gonna set this src app pages, then ng generates components. This is login. Then an ng generates another component, which is going to be for my chats page. So this chats page is just going to be my landing page. And for my login, what I'm basically concerned about is creating this Google pop-up login, because I'm not going to spend time on actually showing you how to implement like auth. I do have like a video where I actually cover how to do Firebase authentication. So I'm also going to link that in the description below. Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to then go out, cd, out in there, then ng generates. Okay, ng serve. So now for my actual search or login page, I'm going to need like a couple of things. Okay, in here, so in here I'm going to have like a login container, full width, age, term. So I'm just gonna have those. Then I'm gonna have like an H1, which is gonna have my login to your account. So the classes that I'm gonna use in here is just gonna be the width full, center text, font, it's just a bold font, it's just black. Okay, also need to set out something in my actual routes. So in here I need to say the path for this is login, then the component is my login component. Okay, so now if I go ahead into this login, you should see some stuff. Okay, let's go back in here. Okay, so what's the next thing that I'd need to set out? So I'm just gonna have like a span. So I'm gonna have a span. Okay, class in here, margin top 4. margin bottom of 8, and the text is white. Okay, so this is just going to be or. And in here, I'm going to have another span. This text custom color is going to be set out to this right background color, underline, and then the cursor set out to pointer. Okay, so this is gonna say create a free account. So I'm not gonna basically use that, right? But just so that this just basically looks good. So what I was gonna do is I was gonna create, but I'm not gonna do the registered page. So you could do that, and then if you want to have like an on-click event, you can just say click here, have a function that you're gonna route to your actual login page. But I'm not gonna do that for this. Okay. Okay, interesting. So I'm gonna have also poll card. Okay, then in here we have W2 3 P10. And I have the flex, and then flex call, then gap y, which is set out to 6, and top highlighted. Box. So this is top highlight box, and then the border. Right, then it's border gray 200, and then rounded LG, and we add like a shadow. All right. So that's basically what we need. Then in here, I'm gonna have these inputs. So I'm not gonna basically use the login one, email and password. So I'm just doing this so that the page actually looks a bit nice, and put it that way. But basically what I'm invested in is actually having this footer section. So this footer section, so this class, yeah, so this is gonna say with pool, and this flex, this column, and the gap, y gap is set up to 4. Okay, so in here I'm gonna have like a button, and then in this button I'm gonna have like login. I'm gonna have class, this is btn with is 4. Let's see how this thing looks. So I'm gonna have this login button. Okay. What's the next thing that I'm gonna add? So I'm just gonna have a with pool over here. So this is for my or state. Okay, so I'll just have this so that I just don't waste time. So now this is just gonna then display this thing nicely here. And yeah, so this is just the full width, flex, justify is centered, right? This is to center obviously this, and then for the before and after, that's where I'm actually creating these as divs, and that's just gonna then basically do that nice UI for me. Okay, so at the bottom of that, I'm just gonna need a button which is gonna say sign in with Google. So that's what I'm basically mostly focused on, because this is the sign-in method that I'm going to use for this application. So here I'm going to have like DTN. So already if I've got this is going to have the sign-in with Google, but I need a couple of other classes, right? So the width is set out to full. So this is flex. So the gap. So this is the column gap. And then justify is centered. So this text is the custom color, dark color. I want to set so the background color to be transparent. This is border 2, border solid. So let's see how it looks. So you basically see what we currently have, and then that's border that's solid. So this border custom color is set up to this dark color. Okay, interesting. And there's some stuff that I want to add, right? So in here I want to add like an icon. This is FA icon, right? And then this is a large, or the size of this icon should be set out to large. It's LG, and then the icon, this icon should be FA Google. Okay, so now you see that this is actually giving us an error, but how we basically fix that is we need to import font awesome here. So we import font awesome, and then we basically also need to import like that FA Google icon. So that FA Google icon, then we're just gonna have FA Google equals to FA Google. Awesome. So with that being said, so now if I just go to my login page, you should see that, right? So now there's basically some stuff that I want to do, right? So let me see. Right, so let me just go in here, this log in page. Okay, so in this login, I know that I'm gonna need to have like an auth service. So this auth service is gonna be the one that's responsible to handle my authentication, right? And then there's also another one that I'll need is the toaster service. So this is gonna be toaster service, and that's coming in. This is just gonna inject my toaster service, ng toaster service. So you just need to ensure that you install this package, and you can basically just inject this. Okay, so I'm gonna need those, and then I'll need to have like a constructor. So in my constructor, I'll also need my router. So I'll also need to just inject my router, and so I'm not gonna use, so let's see. Alrighty, so I know that I've got the service, but I haven't actually created the auth service, so I'd need to do that now, right? So how do I go about doing that? So I need to just come here, close this guy, and then basically say cd into app services, ng generate this. Okay, ng generate service, which is my auth service. And then I'll need another service that I want to create here, which is ng generate my service, which is going to be my chat service. So the auth service will be responsible for authentication, and my chat service will be responsible for all my Firebase chats, right? Okay, so how do I now, what's the next thing that I do, right? So I'll just go into my auth service and actually set up a couple of things. Okay, so in my auth service, I know that I want to create my authentication. So I would need to say, okay, set up my auth, which would need to say get auth. I would need this get auth, right? So this is coming in from Firebase, but I would need to actually configure this. So how do I go about like configuring this? So what I need to do is go to my actual config, which is my app config, and set up my config. So here I'm gonna provide, so I'm gonna have like a provide, okay, this is provide fire. I'm gonna need like a provide Firebase app. Okay, so let me just import this from, let me see, do I have all these stuff in here? Okay. So I need to import this from Angular, right? So this is provide Firebase app. So I just need this provide Firebase app, and for this I'll need an arrow function, and in here I'll just need to initialize. So initialize my app. So for this, and then initialize app, need to initialize my app, and then in my initialize app I need to pass in my Firebase config. So Firebase config. So how do I go about doing that? So in here, this is where I've got this Firebase file here. So this is where I'm going to have my Firebase config dot ts. So in my Firebase config ts, I'm just gonna export my Firebase config, right, and then just use my environments dot Firebase. So this is just gonna be then export a constant. So you're gonna see something over here. So this is why I didn't basically show my actual environment. So in my environments, I've got like a Firebase config, which has all my project IDs, app IDs, the store buckets, and all these stuff that you need. And then this is what I'm going to set this up to. So now I can just come in here and just say Firebase config, and this is just going to import that from there. Okay, so what's the next thing that I need? So in my config, once I've actually entered that, so I've done the app and that, so I'll also need to say provide Firestore. So with the provide Firestore, I need to import this from, so now I can say provide Firestore, and this is also like an arrow function, which is just gonna say get my actual Firestore. Okay, then here for my actual toasters, I can have like a provide toaster, and I can also have like a provide animation. Provide animations. So with the provide animations, I just need to make sure that I import it from this package. So from this, so now I can just have that. Yeah, so this is basically all I need in my actual config. So now that I have that, I can then in my auth service go about utilizing my get auth. Right, so this is coming from Firebase. This is coming from Angular auth, Angular Fire auth. So this is coming from there. So now I can just quickly, okay, no, this is get. Awesome. Okay, let me also have this so that it's just easy to do imports. So I'm gonna have this. Okay, and I'll just input the stuff that I need as I go. So I like to have like my collection names over here, so as constant. So this is the user collection, right? Then this is just my current user underscore user, which is set up to this current user. So this is current underscore user. Right, and then I like to have my router. Right, and then this is just inject that router. Basically, so how you can actually auto-complete is control and then the space, and you can just basically import whatever you want. Okay. So now that I have that, I just need to make sure that I inject my Firestore. This is Firestore. Okay, now I have that. So what is the sign up methods that I need to actually I want to do, right? So I want to have like this async sign in with Google, because this is the sign-in method that I want to use, right? So this is just gonna then sign me in, but what I need is say constant my provider equals to a Google provider, auth provider. So then I want to just return my sign in with pop-up, right? Sign in with pop-up, and then here I just want to pass in this auth and this provider. So this is all I need, right, to create the sign up with Google. Okay, and then there's a couple of functions that I also want to put in, right? So I want to have like a get user from DB function, right? So this get user from DB, what is this gonna do? So this is gonna use like my user ref, right? And then we're gonna say from docs, just auto complete that. Then this is gonna say from Firestore, this dot user, this is from this user collection, and then this dot get current user dot UID. Okay, so this is the function that I basically need for that to work. So let me just go ahead and actually create that function. So in here, so it's get current. So I'm just gonna have this get current user function, right? And then in this get current user function, what I'm gonna do is just return Just gonna pass json.pass. Then I'm getting this from my actual local storage.get item. So it's local storage.get item. And then this .current user, which is the current user, or an empty object string as user. This is just gonna be my auth user. Okay, let me just close this up. Nope. Okay, so I just want to see why it's actually giving me that issue. So this is pass. And this guy, right? Oh, get that. Sorry, my bad. So this get item gets this. If that's now, then it should just create this object as a string, because obviously this is just gonna use the JSON pass. That's why we have that. And yeah, now that we have that, so I can actually get a document using that ID here from that user and just have that user ref. So then the next thing that I would want to do is, so now that I have the reference to that document, so I can just have a const user doc, and then I'll just use the await get the document, pass in the, so I want to pass in the, so let me just call this document reference. So I'm going to pass, hey, what did I do wrong now? Woo! Okay, so this is, I wonder what I did there. So I'm just going to pass in then this document reference in there, and then just return. And for my actual return, I'm just going to use, no, this is not user, so this is user data. So this is user doc, sorry. So it's user doc dot data. So I just want to get that user data from the database, right? So from my current user. Okay. That's what I need, right? So one mistake that I did is, let me see. So I want to get this user from the database. I can just use this user ID and just pass in that user ID and just use that instead. Okay, awesome. So that's basically what I need there to get that user from the database. I can also have a function that says get user by ID, right? So this is getting the user by user ID, but then this other one would be getting user by user. It's basically the same function. It's just that the one would get the user using the current user from local storage, and the other one is just passing it the user ID as a parameter. Okay, so now how do I go about then doing that is I can just copy this, right? And then instead of this, I can just say this is the current, this is get current user dot UID. Okay, and then this should be async. Awesome. So now I can get like my actual current user. I also need a function. I also need a function to actually add my user data, right? So when I log in and the user doesn't exist in my Firestore, I just want to add that user. So this is add user data. So this is the function that's going to be then responsible for that. So for this, what I'm going to use is user. I'm just going to use this user object. That's the user that I'm going to get from my actual Firebase auth. And then in here, I'm just going to pass in the name, which is just a string, or now. This is the string or null, and then const collection reference. So from this collection, I'm just using Firestore, right? This dot, because this is coming from that user collection. Just want to import this from Firestore. Then I just need to create a query. And this is const query reference. That's going to be my query. So this is going to pass in the collection reference. And then I'm going to use like an actual query over here, right? So this is going to then query this by user ID, right? And then where my user ID equals, so it's equals to user.uid. UID. I need to import this and also import that. Okay, so I think I imported the wrong one over here. So you just need to be careful with the actual query. So I need to import this on Firestore. Okay, so now with that query being done, what I can now then do is, so I want to execute this query. So I just say get all documents. So get docs instead of document, right? From this query reference that I have in here. And then this is a promise. I'll use this then. I'll use this async and then results. And then this should use an arrow function. Okay, so over here, I'm going to say if the results.size equals to 0, right? Meaning that there aren't any users. Well, there aren't any user in the database or in the collection with that user ID, then I want to go ahead and actually create that, right? So what I'm going to do is I want to say const document reference. So this document reference is going to be, I want to create this document. And then I need to pass in the Firestore, the actual collection, and the user.uid, right? Because I want the document name to be the user's UID, right? And then what I then want to create is if user data, so this is the data that I'm getting in there. What I want to set up is, okay, so that's the name that I'm passing in there. So what I want to set up is I want to await set doc. Okay, this is set doc, which is a Firestore function. And then this the Firestore. Okay, no, my bad. This is passing in the document reference. And then in here, I just want to pass in the stuff that I want to actually add in. So this is just going to say if user data is not equal to null, then user.name. So this is user data. This is user data.name, else that. And user ID. This is user.uid. Okay, profile. User.photo URL. And then in here I just want to pass in this parameter which says merge true. Okay. Awesome. So then else, right, if we don't have anything in there, I think I'm gonna pass in the same thing, right? I'm gonna have like the same thing in there, which is then gonna be, let's see, nope, this else statement doesn't go there, and it goes in here. Then instead of this, I'm then gonna pass in user.full display name. So user.display name, that's still the same, and I'm just gonna use that merge, which is all good. And yeah, that's basically what we need to do for this function. So what this is gonna do is add a user if that user, there's no collection with a field called user ID of this user ID. So basically when I authenticate in, if I don't have a record in my users collection with this UID, then I should actually create that user. So that's basically how it's gonna work. Okay, I've actually created all of that. So I've got this get current user, which is getting it from local storage, but I also need to set current user. Current user. Okay, so here I just need to say local storage set item this dot current user. Then this is just gonna say JSON stringify this current. Okay, I need to pass in a current user. Is current user, which is coming in from this user. Okay, current interesting. This is coming in from that current user. Yeah, so this is actually to set our current user to our local storage. We also need to have like a log out. So I want to log out my actual user. So for this, I'm going to use Firebase sign out function because I want to sign this user out. Then just use this auth. Okay. Then log user. Okay, for this one, I want to say local storage to clear because I want to clear out my local storage. And then this dot router, I want to navigate to my URL, which is my login URL, basically. Yeah, so these are actually the stuff that I need for this to actually work out. All right, so what do I then want to do is actually go to my actual login and try to implement this stuff. So now if I go to my login components, okay, in here I want to handle. So once I click on this button, so unclick of that button, I want to handle sign in with Google. So this is gonna say auth service. I'm using this auth service, then the sign in with Google, then the then state, then this is like results. So then this is gonna give back my actual credentials. Okay, Google auth provider.create. So this is actual credentials from my actual results. Okay. Alrighty, so with this, I'll then have my actual user. Alright, so this is coming in from my results dot user. Okay, so once I've got this results user, what I want to do is actually say auth service. Right, so I'm not basically going to use this credentials. Didn't think so. So I'm going to have auth.add that user data. Then I'm going to pass in this user. So in this user, I'm just going to have all those details that I need. And then I'm going to pass in now for that. Because I'm basically getting the display name. Since I'm using the pop-up with Google, what it will do is when I sign in my email, it's just going to grab my actual display name, right? And my actual profile picture that I'm using attached to that email. So then I'm going to use this auth service to set my current user, and in here I'm just going to pass in this user, and then in this I'm going to then go to navigate by URL. So it's going to be navigate. Okay, this dot. Oh, this is router dot navigate by URL, and this is gonna go to an empty path, right? Okay, so what do I then want to do, right? So I want to check in here that I've got this chat landing page, right? So this is chat, and then this goes to my actual chat components that I actually created that doesn't have anything for now, right? But I also need another route here, which is gonna say path. If I get an empty path, then this is say path matches this full name. This has to route to my actual chat. Yeah, that will route to my actual chat. Okay, so I've got an issue here. ng-serve. Okay, what's happening? Okay, what is this basically doing? So let me stop and actually see what's the issue. Okay, I've got that. So I'm in the root, right? That's fine. But why is it that when I ng-serve, it's complaining? Oh, maybe I need to save. Okay, yeah, awesome. Now let's see what I actually have, right? So this sends me to my actual chats, right? But this isn't actually correct because I need to also add in like an auth card that says if I'm not currently logged in, it should actually send me to my actual login page. So how do I go about doing that? So in here, just need to clear app guards ng generate guard. This is just going to be for my auth guard. Can activate. Okay. So in my guards, got this can activate guard. So this is gonna say, okay, I'm just gonna have an auth service in here, which then just injects. It's just gonna inject my auth service. So injects my auth service, my actual router. Okay. This is also gonna inject my Angular router. So now, the one thing that I want to do is, so we saw that we did something, right, with the actual, so let me just go back to my actual services, right? So in our auth services, I've got this get current user, but in here, what I'm basically saying is, please get my current user from local storage, but if that's now, set this to an empty object, right? So you'll see something. So if I go back now to my actual auth guard, what I basically need to do here is just check for that, right? So I'll say if, right? So in here, I'll say if auth service dot get current user is not now, right? Do this. So if it's not now, router dot navigate by URL, this should go to log in, right? And then just return false. And then just save this, right? So if I'm not logged in, so meaning that I don't have a current user, then I should basically go to my login page. But you'll see there's something that's happening in here, right? So, okay, now I just need to go back and rerun the server. Okay. ng-serve. Awesome. So now if I were to do this, okay, you'll see that there's nothing actually happening for now, right? So let me just go to my router. So if I go to my routes over here, so I basically need to protect these routes. How do I go about doing that? I can say I can activate, which is auth guard. Okay, I want to set up just a can activate for these two pages. I think even for my test. So I can just set up a can activate to auth guard also for my test page. So you'll see there's still something weird happening. I can still access my actual auth page even though I don't have a current user logged in. And the reason for that is because if I go about checking this current user, so let me just say clear, so let me just say local storage, okay, wait, local, let me say local storage, come on, local storage dot clear. So if I clear my local storage, right, so you'll see something, right? So if I say now local storage, right, if I say local storage dot get item, right, and if I just try to get my current underscore user, you'll see that this is now, right? But basically what's happening over here is if I were to go to my auth guard and try to actually console log this, right, you'll see that I've got this empty object, right? But I can't then now use this because this is basically an object, right? But how I can go about checking, right, I would want to say if this is actually null, or just use this object.keys, because I want to see if this object that is actually giving back, if it has keys, right? So if this object of these keys length, right? So if the length of this is equal to 0, or if the length of this is equal to 0, then now this is actually then going to send me to that page. So if I say chats, if I want to route to that empty route like that, that should send me to my actual login page. So that's actually cool. Okay, so now that that is working, so we know that our actual auth card is actually working. So what's the next thing we can do? So let's try signing in. So if I click on this, sign in, I can basically just add this. Maybe there's one thing I'd probably want to do. So let me just go to my actual chat and start on a clean path. So I'm just going to delete stuff in those collections. So I'm going to delete this collection. And this collection is called chat room. I'm going to delete this. And this user. I'm also going to delete this user collection. So both of them are done. If I basically now try to log into this user, right, so if I go back in here, this sends me to the chat, and obviously in my chats I don't have anything. So now that's the next step, right? So I'm just gonna build like the UI for my actual chats landing page. So how do we go about doing that? So I'm gonna go to my actual chats page with this chats component, right? So in my chats component, I've got some couple of things in here. So I'm gonna create a chat container. Then also have flex in there. Then I'm gonna have like a user chats container. In here I'm just gonna have a background, so it's bg custom. That the height should use the screen's height, and then the width I'm gonna just set it up to 4th p6, so that's the padding. And the flex there is going to be set out to column. So I also need to say flex. Okay, then the gap y is going to be set out to 6. Awesome. So in here I'm just going to have a search input. So I'm basically using a component that we want created. Okay, so also need to be wary that I'll need to also input some common modules. Okay, so then there's also some other stuff that I'd want to add in. So in my test here, I had this handle function that I'll probably also want to add in here. And search, the search will then call this handle search, and I need to pass in this event. So now if I go ahead and check this out, you'll see that I've got this nice looking side stuff over there. Okay. So what else do we want to then do, right? So now if I log in this guy over here, Interesting. Why is it doing that? Oh, because this is running from incognito. Oh boy. Okay, you know what I'll do, right? I'll just run two terminals over here. So I'll just add another terminal here, and then I'll just empty serve and just say yes. Okay, awesome. So this should be then fine. And I just open this. Right, just close this guy and then just break this and open it here on the side. Okay, yeah. Okay, now that I have that, I can just basically just try running it here. And I'll just use a different user for this. So I'll just use this guy. Okay, nice. So I see now that I've got both of this showing, but there's a bit of more stuff that I need to add. Right, so I want to create our users container, then have the flex, then this right section over here, well, so let's see, so we've got this guy with the search, right, so we might want to go for this, so this would be search, search filter container, so this will have that in there. Okay, then here we'll just have this flex column, like 6. So gap y of 6, then we'll just have a gap y of like 10. Okay, so here in this user container, I'm going to have this flex, and this is going to say flex 1, because the orientation has been changed to flex direction column. The flex 1 will just take up the available vertical space, right? And then we have flex column, and then the gap y of 6. Okay, that's what we need. And then in here, I'm just gonna have this for item of user chats. So this is gonna be 4, and it's gonna be user chats. Okay, so I then basically need to have that. So this user chats, so this is going to be user chats, that's user chats config, and then this is going to equal to just an empty array. Okay, yeah. Then in here, what I want to do is have this component and just pass in, so the user, okay, so I first need to import this user chat component, then I need to say this is a config, and this is using that item. Sorry for that, yo, I'm quite sick, but I'm still recording. I don't know why. But okay, so this should be then sufficient enough to actually display our actual users in there, right? Okay, and then underneath there, I would then have like a button section, So this button section, so you can use this cool stuff, right? So you can just say button if you want, and then you can use this dot btn dot w. Then if you do that, that should also create a button with your actual class. And then in here, I'm just gonna use a log out. I'm gonna say this is log out. Then you should see this nice looking log out section. Then I want to have like a click event over here. Okay, in chat, so here I need a constructor, and I need to say auth service, so this needs to be a public. So this is going to use auth service. So in here I can then use my auth service, then call the logout function, logout user. So what this would do is, if I click on this, it should log me out, right? So if I then click in here, if I click in here, what this should do is, if I click here, it should sign me in again. Okay, awesome. I love that. So yeah, so now that I'm actually like logged in, I'll actually get that, and then I need to create, so I'll need to say implements, because on init I want to run some stuff, so implements on init, and then for that I'll need to just also implement this function. Okay, so I want to get my current user. I'll use this auth.get user ID, right? So then this dot then that. This will give me a result. Okay, my current user would be set out to any, but just try your utmost to not use any, right? But in this instance, I'm just going to use any. Okay, then on a catch error, this is just going to use an error handler. So I'm just going to use this dot console error. Just going to console log this error, right? So this should get my current user using that function that we actually created. Okay, awesome. So the next thing we want to do is actually get all our users. So this is basically getting all our users that we can chat with, basically. So we want to get all users that we are able to actually chat with. So for that, we'll need to implement that in our actual chat service. So right in here, I've got like a chat service. So in my actual chat service, there's a couple of things that I probably just need to do. Okay, so I've got a user. Alright, so this is going to use this user. And then I also have a chat room, which is then going to use this chat room. Okay, we've got auth service, which is then going to inject auth service. Okay. Okay, and then we've got a user subject, which is then going to use this user subject, which is of type any, equals to new subject. this is coming from rxjs. Then for my chat room subject, right, this is subject, and you'll see why I'm actually using this, right? So this is gonna use my chat room, and then this is actually new subject. So I'll explain what's actually happening in here, right? Because I'm gonna use a lot of subscriptions. When something actually changes in my chat room, I wanna subscribe to it so that my actual components, which is my chat components, can re-render that page or re-render the content that needs to be displayed in that page. So that's why. Because obviously what we need to do is because Firestore is using like some sort of like some sockets, right? So when someone texts you, you want that to be actually picked up by the other user and actually re-render the new text that's coming in. But you shall see what I'm basically talking about. So for this to be possible, I need to go into my actual models. In here, I need to create a chat room interface.ts. So here I'm just gonna export interface message, right? So I'm gonna have a sender ID, which is a string, message text, which is a string, right? And all these other stuff, because I just don't wanna like waste time. So I'm gonna have a timestamp, read, message type, and a full name, right? Okay. And then I'm gonna export interface, right, which is gonna be my chat room. And then what I'm gonna have that's actually important is my chat room ID, which is what's gonna identify my actual chat room. Okay, let me just have these guys in there. So I'm gonna have these, right? I'm gonna have these in there, right? So unread, number of unread messages for user 1, number of unread messages. Basically not even gonna use much of these unread messages, but what I'm gonna utilize is actually this chat room ID, this user. So I'm gonna have this chat room ID, right? Yeah, I just want to see something, right? So I'm gonna have this chat room ID, users, last message timestamp, and array of messages. So this, I'm not gonna have this. I'm just not gonna utilize this. I think this is, yeah, this is what I need. Okay, now that I have that, I just then need to go back to my actual chat service. So chat service. So now I can just go in here. So this is the chat room subject. Okay, so what do I need? So I want to query all users, right? But how I'm querying these users is I want to query all users, right, besides my user, right, in this. So because I'm not gonna go through like inviting users, that functionality for inviting a specific user. So any user that goes into the DB is gonna be seen by the other users that are actually using this application, right? So I'm gonna say get all users. Okay, so this will just then use this user collection. So then this dot firestore. Okay, I need to have this firestore injected. So firestore Firestore. So this is Firestore. Okay, this is then gonna use this user collection, and then we're just gonna say constant user ID auth.get my current user. Then I want to get this by UID. Then if that's that, then I just want to then say query. So this is const query reference equals to this query, but you need to be careful that you import this Firestore query, right? So for this, I need to pass in my user collection. That this is the user collection that I'm basically querying. So from this, I want to query where user ID, right? So because if I go back here and I reload this, just want to show you something. So if I go back here and I reload this, you should see something. So I've got this guy. I want to query where user ID is of that user, that current user's ID, right? Okay. So if I go back in here, I just want to query where that user ID is not equal to my current user. Okay, just want to import this where clause. Okay, so now let users of any, so this is an array of users. So now I want to just then return on snapshot. We're passing this query reference. Okay, then now const data equals to snapshot dot on changing of a document. So this is upon adding a user. So if a new user is added, if a user is actually removed or modified, then this specific function or listener would actually rerun again, right? Or we would subscribe to this. So on document changes, I want to just do a map of documents. So it's documents, this is an arrow function, and then basically in here I'll just have these documents dot, we want the type, right? So we want to use this type of added documents. So this is for added documents. This is gonna run this, right? Then else if docs.type is equal to removed, else if it's actually modified, so documents type is equal to modified, then this is gonna run that last snapshot. Okay. What do we then want to do? So we want to say constant user ID, right? We want to say because this is gonna run for added documents, it's gonna run for all the users, right? So what I want to then do is actually say where this dot, okay, let me just say this dot current service dot get current user. So this is running for this current user, right? want to have an if condition here, right, which says if this user ID is not equals to this document, so this is going to say docs dot id. So if the ID of that document is not equal to this current user, then I want to push all these users in here, right? Yes. Even though this query would have not actually ran it for that specific document, but I just want to make sure that that is the case, right? So I'm just going to say for users, I'm going to push in docs.document.data. So I'm going to push in that, and then this dot subject, so user subjects dot next. So basically on the next, I want to pass in all these users. So what this will do is, because this is a subject, right? The moment I get all of these, when I hit this next, wherever I'm subscribing to this, that function will keep on re-rendering if a new change actually happens. So if a user's username is modified, right, in Firestore, right, it will rerun this modify state, and then if I recall this, then that on its own would basically then rerun that subscription. So that's basically what's happening in there. So here what I'll do is actually have a user, and then I'll just have documents.doc.data as any. So when I remove this user, I'm going to say users equal to users.filter, and I want to filter where error function user ID is not equal to user.uid. Okay, this user is not equal to that user ID, right? Because if I remove this user from that Firestore, I just then want to just remove that user. And then actually do the same thing. So this would be user subjects dot next, and this will pass in users. Okay, interesting. Then the same thing should happen here, right? So instead of this should be find index, right? This is user index const. Okay, well, this is just gonna be the index, and then because this is modified, I want to just say at that index, right, we want to equate this to docs.documents.data. So this is just basically the new data that's actually modified, and then we just push it in that. So this on its own, what we then can now do here from this chat app, you can just have auth server. Well, no, this should be chat. This is private chat service. This is chat service. This the chat service dot get all users. So this is get all users dot. Okay, we want to subscribe to that, right? So it's actually chat service, right, dot user subject that is subscribing to the user subject, because this is what's gonna change, right? So that's what's gonna change. So let me just do this in a get users function. Then I'll just have this like this dot get, nope, get users. This is a function. Then in here I can just basically do this. So then I'll just have my this dot users chats, which is that array that I created. So I'm just gonna say the results. I wanna map through those results and say this is item, the index. This is an arrow function. Okay. So what are we then gonna do, right? So we're gonna have like chat this user, okay, which is a chat. So this is user chat config. Okay, with this user chat config, I'm just then gonna fill in all missing. Right, so this is just going to return this user. Return that user. Then in here, what I'm going to do is items dot full name, right? Just going to say, do I need to pass in that last message, the text? Well, yeah, the text, I do need that, but okay, let me just say 20 that for the time, and I'm just gonna say item.profile. Okay, that's gonna be set out to false as it is active. Then on click event, this is an arrow function. So what's gonna happen? So on click, I wanna say get the second. So this is the chat user ID. So this is the person whom I'm actually chatting with, right? So how I get their user IDs from the items user ID. Then this is the sender. This is the sender user, which is actually equal to this user. I'll actually show you this dot and then I want to map through all of them. There's actually something I'm doing right here, right? So what's going to happen is on clicking on another user, right? I know this is not going to quite make sense for now, but let me just actually hide this for now, so you can actually see what's happening, right? So when I click this, so now if I go to this chat, what's happening? So this, okay, interesting. Okay, so we're already subscribing to that subject, right? So we're subscribing to this subject, but obviously we need to also call that chat service that gets all users. Okay, so once we call this chat service get all users, this will then go to the Firestore, do all those jiggly stuff that we did in here. So if I go in here, this will get all those users and do all that stuff. And then once it actually hits these, that will hit that subscribe method. So now if we go in here, we should see that we do have like some sort of like difference that we should be seeing. Okay, so now if I come in here, actually hit that, what's happening? So let me just log out, log in again. So if I log in with this user here, okay, there's something happening, right? And what is the issue? Let's see. So this is going into push. Profile. Let's see. This user has a profile. This user has a profile as well, but what's happening with the other user's profile? So let's see. So it should be showing my user profile, but it seems like it's got a bit of some issues, right? So let's see if I go in here. That should be fine, right? That should be fine. They actually do something wrong. Interesting why this other one is not actually pulling the image. Oh, there it is. Crazy. Okay, maybe it just took a bit of some time to actually pull in that image, but that was weird. Okay, so ideally that should be pulling that image, right? So if I were to log out and create another user, right? So if I create another user, which is this user, you'll see that this user should be added here as well, right? So this user should be added here, but it shouldn't be included here. Okay, so why is it included in here? Which is the question we should be asking ourselves, right? Because it should be included in here, but not in here. So how do we go about fixing that issue? Okay, let me just log out. If I log in with this user, it's got that. If I sign in with this user, it's got that. So there's definitely something wrong that's happening, right? So basically what's happening is on adding in a user, so if I go to this chat and say query where this user is not equal to this user ID, right? Okay, okay, let me just do this, right? Let me just put this here again. Therefore, for some weird reason, there's something weird that's happening, right? So this should be how it's done. Let me just go to this. If I delete this document, let's see what happens. Right? So I log out, right? If I sign in with this user, let's see what happens. So it's got both of those. Let me sign out. Let me sign in with this. If I sign in with this user, what happens? So I've got both of those. So if I sign in with this guy, yes. Okay, this is actually working all good now. So let me just do this. So this side, I'm going to sign in with this user. And then on this other side, I'm going to sign in with the user with the profile picture. Okay, awesome. That's fine. So, okay, interesting. Yeah, so we've got all we need for that. So what is the next thing that we basically want to do, right? Is now that we actually have our actual user, so we then want to now implement this instance where when I click on this user, I want to set the is active state. So how I go about doing that is on my chat service in here, on click events, I'm just going to set this sender user. So I just need to set the sender user. This is also going to be set up to any, right? And then I just want to map through. I just want to map through all those items. So UU dot UID. No. I want to map through all of them and set the is active to false, right? But then what I also want to do is after setting those UU is active to false, I then want to set just for this user dot is active is set to true. So this is basically what I want to do, right? So what would this do, right? So if I click on this, nope, nothing is happening, which is interesting, right? This is very interesting because so I'm saying I'm iterating through all of the I think I know what the issue is, right? So I need to go in here, right, and set the click state of that. So if I now click, I want to say config dot on click, just call that event. Well, if config yes, okay. Okay, let me just do something like this. I think this should work. If I do this, will this work? Nah. I think let me just use this question mark. Let's not worry about the error or the warning state. Okay, so now if I click on this, if I click on that, that should set the active state for those. Right. What's the next thing that I want to do, right? So the next thing that I actually want to implement over here in the actual chat is showing the actual speech bubbles, right? Okay, so how do I go about doing that, right? So in here, in my chats component, so I've got these in here and that, and then I just need to close this guy, right? If I've got a sender message, so if I've got if sender user is actually like existing, then I want to then show content on the right side. So this is going to be for my chat detail section. This is my chat details section. So for this, I'm going to use a width of 100 view height. I want to say an overflow of hidden. My overflow should be hidden. Right, my background is a custom color of grayish. So I want a custom grayish color. So here in my actual config, just need a grayish color. Okay, just want to set this to this. Okay. So in here I want to set my custom color to be a grayish color. Right, then it's just items center. Eight pixels flex, py of 4, and gap x of like 3. Okay. Now that I've got that, so I've got this image. Okay. So this is just gonna be my source. This is gonna be my sender user dot profile. Let's see what we have. So if I click on this, right, that should show me that. Interesting. Okay. Nope. So this should be profile. Header. So this is background, custom, grayish color. 8 pixels, flex. When it's flex, let's see. So this is gonna be flex. Py of 4, and the gap is x3. Okay, so in here, so after this is flex 1, flex, and then this is flex column. I think that's how I missed it. Okay, that's very big. Okay, but I'll actually fix this up. Alright, so how I fix this is just using the class for image. So now if I click that, that should show it properly, right? Okay, awesome. This is looking all good. Now this goes in here. Alright, and then here we've got like our actual content section. Flex column, right? Then in, so we've got an f sender dot full name. Then we've got a span text. Custom, this is the darkish text. This font is bold, and then this is 2XL. Okay, this is sender.full. Okay, awesome. So if I click on this should show me that user. If I click on this guy, then this should show me that user, basically. So that's all good for that section. Now moving on to this middle section that we have in here, right? So let's see what we have for that. So this is that grayish. This is looking all awesome, right? Okay. So underneath there, so which is underneath here, I want to have a message container. Messages container. right? And then we just have flex one, background, and this is the custom grayish background. Okay, overflow. So our Y overflow should be set out to scroll. Okay. Then in here we're gonna have message, list, H is full, and then about flex column. Gap Y, that's set up to 2. The padding is 10. Okay, so then we're gonna have 4. That's so items. So this is item of chats. And we just have this track $index. Okay, now we need to actually have our chat bubble. So in here we're just gonna have chat bubble, then pass in our config for that, and that's gonna be of type item. Okay, so we need to import some stuff, right? So in here we need to have a chat bubble component. Okay, this needs to be a comma. We need a chat bubble component to sort that out, and then we also need our actual chats. So if we go in here, we can actually have chats, which is now a chat bubbles config, which is an array of that. Okay, so if we were to come in here in our test, right? So if we were to come to our actual text here, which was this, and were to add this like that, no, so this is added in the wrong place, right? So this is chat. If I were to add this like this and another one like this, you'd see what would happen. So if I click on this, you'd actually see these chats here, right? But obviously we'll need to get that from the DB. So how do we make that happen, right? So currently how we can go about doing that is we need to make sure that we get these from get all chats. Okay, so this is going to use this chat service dot chat room, right, dot subscribe. So we want to subscribe to that. So this is going to give us like a results, and actually, yeah, so this is going to give us actually our results for those chats. But here in our actual service chats, we need to create that function for getting our chat room. So how do we do that? So if I go here, chat service, I need to get chat room. So this is gonna be passing in our user with our user ID type string. Okay. So now I'm gonna say user. This is gonna be my current user ID. Right, so this is coming in from this dot auth service dot get current user dot UID. If that's null, then just give me that as an empty string, right? So now we then need to say reference our chat room collection. So this is our chat room collection. So we get this from our actual collections, then this dot firestore, and this dot chat room. So we need to get it from this collection. Then we want a query reference. So this should be taking in a query, and that's passing in our actual chat room, so which is actually our chat room collection, and we want to have a where clause. So we want to have a where clause, and this where clause is basically saying get where. So we want to get where users, because in our actual chat room we're gonna have like an array of user IDs, so which is the two users that are actually chatting to each other. So here we want to say where this array, so where users array contains this user dot user ID. So that's the secondary user. So when I click the user that I'm actually clicking to, right? So then that ID is going to be extracted from there, and then let's see now what happens. So this is chat room collection, and yeah, that's basically what we need. So here I'm just going to return an on snapshot, and I'm going to pass in this query reference async, and then I have a snapshot. This is then gonna be an arrow function, and then I'm just gonna say snap data documents, okay, docs dot find. Okay, I want to find a document right from that snapshot with a document dot data with a doc dot data as a chat room, right? So I want to find with that as a chat room dot users dot includes this user ID, so this current user ID. So what is this going to do, right? So this query is going to just find, right? It's just going to find from the users, right? So from the chat room users where so it's gonna, okay, what this query is gonna do, right? It's gonna go to the chat rooms collection, right? And then check where this user ID is included in that collection's like ID. So I don't know, maybe this needs me to actually have it in here, because I'm not even making sense. So let me just do this, right? So what's gonna happen is we're gonna have these users, right? Say we've got a user ID of like that, right? And then we've got another collection with users which has 1, 2, 3. So it's 1, 2, 3 and 1, 1, 1, right? And then right. So what this thing is gonna do, so imagine that these are two different collections, right? And then the user which clicking into has this user ID, right? Which is the user that we're clicking, like this user that I'm actually going to click into, right? So what this thing is going to do is going to say, loop through all the collections where this field in a specific collection includes this user ID, basically. And then also on this one, because these two collections consist of this user, right? But what we want to do is actually get a chat where this user ID is actually chatting to the current user ID of the logged in user. So say logged in user ID is 123, right? And then clicked user ID is 111, right? So what this is gonna do is it's gonna try to find 123 and 11, and it's gonna identify this chat, right, as the valid chat that we actually want to read off of. So I think I wish that actually made sense. So basically I'm looking through everything here, and then what I'm trying to find in this is basically that current user, right? Okay, then once I actually have that, I want to then run an if statement, right? So I'll say snap data. So if the snap data exists, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say data equals to chat room. I'm going to say chat room ID is equal to snap data dot ID snap yeah, so this is going to do that, and then this is as chat room. Then this is going to say this dot chat room subject dot next, and then this is just going to pass in that data, because I want to do this so that this subscription in here can actually be called, right? So if I go back in here again, I want to have an else condition. So this else condition says if we don't have an existing chat between the two users, we want to then go about creating that, right? So how we go about then doing that is in here, I'm just going to say create a chat room, First thing I want to do is where users, right? So user, so the current user, and this user dot user ID. Okay, this is what I want to do, right? And then the last text, because obviously when I created, the last text should be empty. Messages should be an empty array because we don't have anything for now. And the last time, even though I'm not going to display this, that's going to be a new date. Okay, awesome. That's basically what we need for that. And then I then need to just add that document. So const new, I want to await a document. Okay, add this, then const data equals to, I think this is going to be the same thing like this, but instead of this I'm going to have like this create chat this is chat room next, and then this is just gonna pass in that data in there. Okay, that's basically what I need for that, right? So I know that I would need to call this chat room okay. So how do I go about doing this now? Is I know, so in my chat service, Now in my actual chats, I want to do something of the sort. So when I click on a specific user, I want to go about, okay, awesome. So why is this happening? I want to see something. So on clicking of a user, right? So if I come in here, on clicking of this user, I want to say get all chats. Nope. I want to get chat room, right? So and then pass in this. Yeah. So I'm basically gonna get all that, and that should be all I need, right, to create the chat room. So let's see what happens, right? So in here, if I were to click on this user, right, let's see if I reload. I go out here, then go back in here. I want to see if that user is going to be created. Okay, what happened there? Okay, so we didn't call the get all chats, so that's why. I think that's where the problem is, right? So let's start get all chats. Okay, interesting now, right? So now if I click on this user, so I go out, go back in here. Did it actually create the user? It didn't. So if I click on this, interesting. So let's see what actually happened, right? So I need to get all of those guys, right? But there's actually something weird that's happening. Okay. So when I click on a user, right, I'm basically saying that I want to create that chat room. So what is it that I'm doing that's wrong? Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. This dot sender ID dot user ID, right, equals to user dot UID. I think that was the issue. Cool. So now, because now it's not identifying that user ID, so I think now if I go about like clicking on a specific user and then doing that, I don't know. What? Firebase should be doing something, right? Interesting. Let's see. So I'm going in there. So let me just console. So let me just say console.log. This is basically saying Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Oh no, my bad. Yes, this should be that. Because that's the items user. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so now let's try it again, right? So now if I click on this user, right, and then if I obviously do that, yes, now it actually creates that chat room. So you can see that now I've got a user in that chat room, right? So okay, now I can just go about actually adding some more stuff in there, right? So what's the next thing that I want to do, right? I want to add this functionality for adding a message. So what I'll need for that is, because I already have like the speech bubbles that are showing, the only thing now that I need is at the bottom of that. So underneath here, okay, so underneath right here, I want to have this text section, which is equal to that, and this background custom color, which is bubble. Okay, wait. BG. So this is bubble background color. Then this is set to flex, MX 6, PX 4, PY 5, gap is 8. Alright, I'm gonna set my rounded to this large, MY 5. And my items should be centered, which is align item center. Okay. So this over here would be just a text on a placeholder which says say sometime. On a placeholder that says say something, on a class with a background, transparent background, fix 1. Just 4, and then the outline should be set out to none. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay. And then we want to also set out like a div. So in here we want to have a div for actually showing the icon for that, right? So if I click on this, you should be seeing something, right? So let me just do something like that. Okay, wait, let me just do something like that so you can see it properly. Okay, awesome. And here, let me just do something like that so you can see it all properly. And yeah, So now if I click on this, okay, this is all stretched out really big, but if I close it out like this, I know it's going to be too small, but should do the trick. So what's happening is you'll see something, right? So if I click on this, I can basically type stuff, but if I click on enter, well, if I click on that, that should actually add the message, right? So right in here, what I want to do is I want to have a click and add message. Okay, so what do I want to do, right? I know that that's an input, right? So probably I want to use like reactive forms, right? So for me to actually use reactive forms, I would need to actually import that. So in here I can import reactive forms, which is the Angular reactive forms. And now I can utilize something like message controller. Well, it's a form controller, form control, right? And then within that form control, I can say this is equal to a new form control, and that's just an empty. Then I have like some sort of like validators that required. Okay, yeah. So what's gonna happen here is I'm gonna say if this dot form control dot value. Alright, so for that add method, what I want to do is if I get this dot, I want to trim this, the value is null, then I just don't want even the user to be able to send in anything because there's nothing in there, right? So, but for the form control to work, I'll need something like this. So I'll just wrap this section. The section should be wrapped up in a form control. Nope. This input should be wrapped up in a form control, and then the rest here should be now a chat room. So I want to set out the message. So const message. So this message of type message okay. This is sender dot user ID, right? So that's the sender dot user ID that we're actually passing in. Actually, this is getting it from auth service dot current user because I'm the one who's actually sending it, right? So I'm the sender ID. So dot UID or null, but that shouldn't be null at that state. And then this dot message control dot value is what I should be passing in there. Then new date, because this should give me the current date of which the message was actually sent. Red is false, text that. Then the full name of the person who's sending this thing is the full name is coming in from the current user. This is my name, right? And yeah, once I have this guy over here, so I can have this dot chat service dot add message, and this should be this. Okay. This should be from this chat service, right? So this dot chat this is chat room ID is equal to this guy, chat room ID is equal to that. So that's the new message, right? So I need to go ahead and actually create this stuff. So in the chat room, I want to add a method here for adding a message. Add message. So this add message will have a chat room ID, which is of type string. Right, and a chat room. So chat room message. Okay. So chat room message is of type message. Alright, so constant this is collection room. So it's using that collection. Then this dot firestore and this dot chat room. This document reference. This is doc. This dot firestore. This dot chat room. And then chat room ID. Okay, so now what happens, right? So now this says this const chat room doc is await. So I just need to say async. Now I need to await get doc. And pass in this document reference. Then we say if, okay, nope, we say if doc if chat doc that exists. So if it doesn't exist, then we just don't do anything, right? Okay, let's see. So we've got this add message. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, so this will say data chat room documents.data. Because already when we click that user, if it doesn't exist, okay, so already when we click the user in it, if it doesn't exist, we will create a chat room. So we'll never have an instance where it doesn't exist. So that's why we're just not doing anything, doing nothing in this section, basically. Okay, else get this data and then we just say data.lost message timestamp equals to this date. And we say data.lost message equals to chat room the text message, right? And then we say data.push data.message message.push. Okay, then it's just basically this chat new message, then it's update stock, pass in this document reference, and then we just say pass in this data. Awesome. So that's basically what's going to happen is when we add a new message, that should then basically do all those nice stuff. So now let's see what's happening right with the add message. What is how are we going about getting the message? Okay, so when we subscribe, when we actually subscribe to a specific chat, right, that's where we should be able to get the chat room ID. Yes, true. So that's where we should be getting the chat room ID. So there's a bit of some stuff we need to do there, right? So if we go to our actual chats, and here, the moment we actually subscribe, I'm gonna say chat room data. Okay, so this the chat room data equals to res. Right, so this the chats. That's equal to the res messages dot map. Okay, so we've got like items in there. So here we can just return a text item dot lost dot text message position. So how we actually determine the position is if the item dot sender ID is equal to my current user so let me just say auth.get right UID. So if the sender ID is equal to my current user, then that should go to the right, and then else should go to the left. The chat message should then go to the left hand side. Okay, that's what we need for that. And then this should say as chat bubble config. Okay, interesting. So the moment we click on a specific chat, then we should have that. So this should say this dot chat data dot chat room ID. So what's happening here? So I want to see something, right? So nope. So we can just do this. Okay, now let's see what happens, right? Okay, I need to click this. So this will say hey, right? So if I now go to this chat room, I should be seeing that lost message like that, right? So who is this guy? I think this is the guy. Oh yeah. So the moment I do that, okay, there's something that I just didn't do, right? So in this chat, after sending a message, right, I want to say this dot message dot reset. Yeah, the moment I send a message, I just want to reset that. Okay. So now if I click on this guy, I should see this message. If I click on that guy, I should also see that message. So now if I were to say, if I were to respond and say, how are you doing today? How are you doing today? If I respond to this message, right, that message should be there. If I go to this user, I shouldn't see that a message in this because we haven't actually chatted together, right? So I see that the message that I'm sending through are coming in here, and then the message that the person is receiving is actually coming in the left, right? There's also some other thing that I just want to add, which is this get lost text message. So in the text service, so in the chat service, I need to have a get lost chat message, okay? So how do I go about doing that, right? So get lost text, this is from user any. Okay, so this should start off with the same, alright, thing. Then here I'll just say return new observable, right, observer. Then I say if, then here I'll just say return on snapshot. Then I'll pass in this query. And I'll say async snapshot, which is an arrow function. Then I say if the snapshot dot empty, right? So if I don't have a last message, then I just want to say observer.next equals to null, because I've got nothing to actually show, right? Okay, else I'm going to say chat data is equal to the snapshot documents. In these documents, I want to find a document where that includes right, so look, it actually includes this current user basically, right? Okay, so now if the chat data if this data is null, then we want to say return observer.next is null. Okay, we don't need an else because if not, it's not going to continue, Right, so here I just want to say const data, which is this chat room. Then I want to fill in this chat room, which is chat data.id, and then chat data.data as this chat room. Okay, so what we're basically doing here is if we find this stuff, we're just gonna bring back this data and just append this chat room ID onto that, right? So then now we can just return this observer.next, which is then gonna call the subscription if we're actually subscribing to it. So then we'll say lost. We'll have like a lost text, which is data.lost message, and then we're gonna have like the time, which is data, which is like data.lost timestamp, right? Yeah, so this is basically it that we need. So now what we can then go ahead and do is get that text. So in here is get last text message function. So this will just pass in like an item of any and user chat config, right? And this the chat service that get lost text, wanna pass in this item, wanna subscribe, and make it like our results. Then we have an arrow function. So what's happening here is from the results we're getting back, wanna see if they exist. Wanna set the last text equal to results.last text. Last text. Okay. Okay, so we want to do this guy. Okay. So this text equals to this last text message, right? Okay, sure. Then that's all we basically need. So the moment we get this user, we also want to get the last text message. So just get last text message. Yes, so this is the sender and this user. Nope, not there. I don't think we need it there. I think this is done for each user, so something like that. What? They're breaking stuff. Okay. So I need to check that out properly. Okay, I think here something wrong. Yeah, awesome. So now if I close this out, here is, you'll see that I'm actually getting the last text message. So if I were to just say, please can you reply, and if I send this through, that last text message is gonna actually show. Okay, yes, I am here. And yeah, basically this is basically what we have for this chat application. So what we can do over here is there's something I actually left out, right? So for this search bar, I think this could be like something you guys can like do as an exercise, whereby you can just try to type in the search bar with searching through like the users. So basically when you search here, it should like do some sort of like filtering. I guess that should be a great assignment to do. And then maybe from the last, because what we're saving in here is the timestamp, then you can also write like an Angular function that's gonna actually return the correct time, right? So the last message timestamp. So I guess that's a great exercise to do at home, but this is just it. So if you're new to the channel and you like this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.